What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about some very important levels to be watching for and how things are looking on SPY and these other tickers. Some very important information about the economic calendar for today and what you should be watching for in the news affecting the markets. But before I bring anything to all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon. Anyways, now let's break down what's going on with the markets. Looking at SPY, we're going to be watching to see if this structure leads to a break to the downside or not. I want to talk about some important levels and things to be looking out for when it comes to the way the market is moving. For the economic calendar, I just want to call out that today we have the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then at 11:30 a.m., we have the 3-month and 6-month bill auctions. That's pretty much it for all the data. And we're going to be watching to see how things end up affecting the markets and watch for volatility. That's 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Besides that, what are a couple of things to know about the market? The U.S. Futures slipped on Friday morning ahead of the final trading session of the week, as some disappointing results from Intel caused that before the market came back up. And now the question is, how are we going to continue for this week? Well, we'll have to wait and see. I'll be talking more about that later. There's also things coming out that the GDP numbers came out a little bit better than what we were basically expecting. Now we're going to be seeing how things continue from here. So those were from the GDP numbers for Friday. There's also some new things coming out right now. We're going to be looking at tech this week. Tech is also going to be very, very important. Don't forget, we have Microsoft, Alphabet, Meta, Amazon, and a bunch of them later on for the week. We'll have to watch and see how this affects us. Boeing reports earnings as investors raise a question about the 737 MAX program, and the company's shares have dropped more than 20% this year after the panel blew out of the 737 MAX. So that's going to be very important. We'll see how they end up doing. Some pharmaceutical companies, including two, will basically report this week. That's going to be very important for them to stay competitive, and we'll have to see how it goes for them. That's pretty much it for now in terms of news that's going to affect the markets. So lots of earnings, lots of anticipation, and we'll have to see how the market kind of continues. SoFi just announced its earnings. They actually are doing very well. They got their first quarterly profits, so that was very, very great for them. And the potential growth is expected to be relatively good for them. They had some pretty good guidance as well for the upcoming year, and they're anticipating an adjusted EPS that's actually a little bit hotter than what we were expecting. So that's pretty good for them. The adjusted net revenue is good, not bad earnings, good for SoFi. That's why it's pumping in the pre-market. Now, as far as the other earnings go, here's your earnings calendar. If you want to see this again, we had SoFi before market open. Tuesdays when we have like Pfizer, Microsoft, and a bunch of others. And Thursdays when we have that Apple, Amazon, and Meta day. It's going to be very crazy. Now let's talk about the market. How are things looking? Well, when we look at SPY, we have this resistance at this 488 area. We're going to have to watch and see how we react to this. If we do break that, you're going to be watching these highs over here from 488.5 to 489 as resistance. And then don't forget about this yellow trend line, which is going to be resistance as well. For support, if we get a rejection here, we're going to be watching to see how this thing tries to hold around. First off, we have 487 as a minor support. Then we have 486 coming next. There's 486.75. And then 486 will be our next target. If we lose that, our next target is going to be all the way down, in my opinion, to 484.5, where this wick is. I think we're going to basically trigger that soon. And then we're going to be watching these levels. So what do I think SPY is going to do? Looking at SPY, there's kind of like a potential shift in the structure right now, especially as we get closer to this 20 EMA. So I do see 486 being tested soon. I'm not sure if we kind of pop first and then we end up getting that drop, or if we just drop from here. But I think that we're going to be testing 486 very soon. And if we lose this, there's going to be a risk of 484.5. Now, it depends on if this is like a head and shoulders like structure that's developing, or if we're about to reject from this back test. So it depends on how we react to this yellow trend line. Do we test it one more time and push first and then start dropping, or just drop from here? I do anticipate a move to the downside coming soon, though. I think we're going to be retesting 486. And if we lose it, 484.5 is a real possibility. Onto the QQQ. I just want to mention that the QQQ looks very similar. It kind of pushed up to 425 as predicted yesterday, but we have this big gap below to fill at the 423 area. My gut tells me we're going to fill that gap soon. Now, if you want to be bullish, you want to break 425 and start pushing for this high right here, get above 426, and then our next target is 427.5. For support, if we lose support at 424, expected to come all the way down towards 423.5, eventually 422.5, 421, and 420. My best prediction for this would be we kind of like pop a little bit, back test the 424 range a little higher before we come back down to fill the gap, or we just start dropping to fill the gap as soon as we open and just start continue to sink to 422.5. Either way, I do see a move to the downside coming, so be very careful for all the investors out there, all the traders, be very careful. How is Tesla looking, in my opinion? I think Tesla's showing a little bit of strength, but as I mentioned in my previous video, we're going to be watching to see if we could hold this flag and if this structure ends up holding. So Tesla has this potential uptrend that's trying to be established. Could this be a flag? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I think that there's a good chance Tesla comes down, attempts to rebound a little bit. When we open it might try to push up to 186 or so, and it might reject off this resistance 186 to 187.5, come back down and shuffle into 184s. If the market starts sinking, there's going to be a risk of Tesla returning to 182, if not 180. So be very careful with it. Watch resistance at 186, 187.5, and then if we break that, there's 190. Watch supports at 184, 182.5, 180. If we lose that, there's going to be a bigger drop to 175 coming soon. With this uptrend, there's a very good chance that it might attempt to push up temporarily. Then we might get a rejection, trade sideways, and I'll have to watch the risk of Tesla dropping lower later on, because if the market starts dropping, it might drag Tesla down to the lower 180s. So watch that carefully. If we lose 180, we turn a lot more bearish, so be very careful. On Nvidia gapped up. We have this big gap below to fill around 610, so we might see this thing drop. I mentioned to everyone this kind of resembles like a cup and a inverse cup and handle like structure. Well, we also have like a double top forming for the handles, so there's a very good chance Nvidia might come down to about 610, potentially even some lower levels. So we might see this thing sell off a bit. Be a little bit careful. Watch resistance at 616. If we break this 616, 617 range, a bigger push to 620 plus is coming. If we fail to break that, we can just pop above it and come back down, look for a drop. And I think the next target is going to be 610. If we lose that, then 607 and eventually 602 are coming. I favor Nvidia coming back down, if anything. On Aapl stock, Aapl to me looks very similar. It's trying to hold around 192, but you could see it's just barely holding up. Plus, we have this gap to fill below, so we might see it pop to the 192s and come back down towards 191 and eventually get very close to 190.5. We have a head and shoulders like structure looking kind of bearish. If we're bullish, we want to break 192.5 and 193.5. If we're bearish, that's if we're bullish, by the way, we want to hit those targets. If we're bearish, we want to see it lose 192 and eventually fill the gap down in the lower 191s, and then there's 190.5. In my opinion, this is looking a little bearish, so we might see Apple sink lower, so just be very careful. With that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this pre-market update. Watch your levels carefully, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you, and peace out.